The state is one of the biggest landlords of abandoned properties in New Mexico. Some of these buildings have been sitting empty for years and they're costing everyone a lot of money. So what's being done about it? Kim Holland is on special assignment.
They're rich with history, beautiful old buildings that in some cases are literally falling apart. Others falling victim to the harsh summer heat or vandals.
You know, as any other area, we run into some difficulty.
The Department of Health once used these buildings in Los Lunas for the developmentally disabled. The campus closed in the mid-1990s.
A lot of these folks came from some better situations.
Today, a few agencies like State Police and the Department of Corrections use space here, but a majority of the buildings are abandoned. There's even a cemetery tucked away on the back of the property. The Department of Health is responsible for maintaining it and the entire campus. In its heyday, buildings like this one used to be bustling with activity. Now, nearly 20 years later, the state needs to figure out what to do with these empty halls. In fact, the state is stuck with buildings it doesn't necessarily want, but can't do anything with.
We own over 750 buildings, about 6.5 million square feet in the state of New Mexico.
Yeah, this was actually one of the education buildings.
100 of the state's buildings, totaling 618,000 square feet, sit empty. Taxpayers own more than a dozen buildings at the Los Lunas campus alone. But by far the biggest piece of vacant property the state owns, 400 acres in Fort Bayard near Silver City. The state is now doing its best to preserve this landmark, but maintaining the property has been a drain on New Mexico coffers. The old hospital, built in 1922, closed 5 years ago. It cost the state about $100,000 a year in upkeep. Now it's coming down.
The contract we wrote to tear down the old Fort Bayard Hospital is about $3.8 million.
The Fort Bayard Preservation Society says the state has not done enough to protect the rest of its historic buildings.
It takes months and months and months and months and months. And they will pass it from one department to the next before anything is done.
Once the asbestos-laden property is gone, the state hopes to sell the Fort Bayard property to a developer who would preserve its history. The other state buildings have different needs. Is it better to tear down a building, or is it better to leave it standing and leave it vacant if there's no safety concerns?
It really depends upon how well maintained the building is, its age.
General Services Department Secretary Ed Burkle says the budget usually dictates the future of vacant state-owned buildings. Because some of the buildings are so unique, like the ones at Fort Bayard, finding new purpose for them can be difficult, while tearing them down can be a big financial hit.
And in the FY16 special session, we were given $3.5 million. Now we have to determine how we're going to spend that $3.5 million. We've got significantly greater needs.
Kim Holland, KRQE News 13.
The General Services Department owns the state's buildings, but is not responsible for maintaining them. That's up to the agencies that use or otherwise hold those buildings. For a list of all the vacant state buildings, go to our KRQE app.